Alright, Chapter 1, Introduction, Section 1, General, 1-1, Purpose. The regulation implements federal, state, local environmental laws, DoD policies for preserving, protecting, conserving, and restoring the quality of the environment. The regulation should be used in conjunction with the Title 32 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 651, which provides Army policy, the National Environmental Policy Act, Title 42, U.S. Standard Code 4321-4347. Requirements and supplemental program guidance which the proponent of the regulation may issue as needed to ensure the programs remain current. Environmental stewardship includes, but is not limited to, 1. The environmental components, installations to sustainability, environmental support for the Army training testing mission, environmental support during the deployment contingency operation for the on and off installations, operations of the Army, facilities that are not officially designated as installations, compliance related cleanup program, Army Defense Environmental Restoration Program, formerly used defense sites, defensive state of memorandum agreement, cooperative agreement program, pollution prevention, compliance with legal mandates, national resources, cultural resources, environmental protection aspects of past management, environmental training of the military and civil personnel, basic realignment and preclosure, environmental program, National Environmental Policy Act, requirements, operational noise, environmental quality technology, environmental legislative regulatory analysis of the monitoring program, environmental reporting and information management, environmental consideration, real estate material acquisition programs. The regulation defines the framework of Army Environmental Management System (EMS). Also, appropriate facilities which have implemented all the mission focused on environmental management system by the end of the calendar year 05 must attain the internal organization standard by the 14001 or ISO 14001. Compliance with the end of the official year of 09. The Army Environmental Management System Commanders Guides and Army Environmental Management System Implementator Guides and Army Environmental Management Aspect Impact Methodology for Army Training Guides provide detailed implementation guidance. See the chapter of the regulation reflect the inclusion of the 5 interconnected environmental management systems areas of policy planning, training, policy planning, implementation, operating, checking, corrective action, and management review. Alright, One policy. The Army Environmental Policy Statement reflects the Army commitment with environmental protection, enhancement, pollution prevention, and continuing improvement. 2. The planning and implementation. Army will identify how the operations impact the environment, and it will set the objectives, targets for the reducing impact. It will identify the track applicable legal other requirements, and will support operational effectiveness, improve program management. Chapter 3. Program management operation. The Army will assign roles of responsibility environmental management. Section 2 of this chapter provides the required environmental training for the establishing procedure, communication with the outside or of the organization, documentation, environmental procedure provided with the emergency preparedness and response. Chapter 15. Checking and corrective action. The Army will monitor and measure the progressivity achieving stated goals, objectives, targets. Will identify the implementing corrective actions. Chapter 16. 5. The management review. The Army will periodically review the program performance management system implementation and ensure continual improvement. Chapter 17. 1-2 references required and related publications prescribed in reference form and are listed in Appendix A. 1-3 explanation of abbreviations and terms. Abbreviations and special terms used in this regulation are explained in the glossary. Section 2, responsibility. The Secretary of the Army. The Secretary of the Army, the SA, serves as the trustee natural cultural resources management of the Army. The Secretary of the Army is responsible for protecting and sustaining quality of the air and land and water resources entrusted to the Army. The Secretary of the Army Army Environmental Policy Statement certifies the Army Environmental Program Objective Memorandum. The Army Environmental Restoration Program meets all the legal requirements and agreements. 1-5. The Assistant Secretary of the Army Installation Environment. The Assistant Secretary of the Army Installation Environment, ASA, I&E, has primary responsibility for the Army's and military environmental programs that is other than civil works functions the U.S. Army Corps of Engineering, and the responsibilities are carried out through the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Army Environmental Safety and Occupational Health. who will provide overall policy advocacy, protection, program direction, oversight across installation, logistic, and acquisition operations. This includes, but not necessarily limited to, the military operation activities, including the training, deployment, contingency operations, on and off installations, operations at Army facilities that are not officially designated as installations or sites. Establish long-term strategy for the annual Army Environmental Program goals, objectives, and metrics. Serve the Army senior policy officials historic preservation in accordance with the Executive Order 13287. Preserve America. Federal preservation officers for oversight coordination with the Army's activities under the Natural Historic Preservation Act, NHPA, including approving the Single Army National Register of Historical Place, NHRHP, nomination of federally owned and controlled historic properties, serve as military primary contact for the Office of Secretary of Defense, Congress, for the other federal, state, and agencies, other components of environmental matters. On the behalf of the Secretary of the Army, can carry out the Department of Defense executive agents a responsibility for the following: Office of Secretary of Defense programs, environmental information technology management, floods, DSMOA, level radioactive waste, Defensive Occupational Health Program, National Defense Center of the Environmental Excellency, the Department of Defense Regional Environmental Coordinators, Department of Defense Forestry Reserve Account, and environmental related annex of the Master Data Exchange Agreements. H. Provide policy, advocacy, program direction, oversight for the formerly used defense sites, floods, base requirement closure, and Army Defense Environmental Restoration Program. Approval, selection of the Army representatives of Interior Service Interagency Environmental Committees. Provide oversight and coordination with the strategic outreach communication. Provide oversight and coordination with the strategic outreach and communication for the provide policy advocacy program direction oversight for the Army quality environmental quality technology program. Serve as a permanent co-chair for the Environmental Technology Technical Committee. The consolidated with the prioritized Army environmental technology needs to ensure the cost-effective allocation of available resources consistent with the Army Program Guidance Memorandum. Provide policy advocacy program direction, oversight, environmental support for the Army Acquisition Program. In conjunction with the Assistant Secretary of the Army Acquisition Logistics Technology, annual review of the Army environmental quality, research and development testing, and elevation to research, development, technology, and evaluation efforts. Provide representation of overarching integration product themes of supporting the Army System Acquisition Review Council, and to ensure the Army material all acquisitions categories may requisite environmental criteria prior to milestone reviews. Provide recommendations to milestone decision authority regarding the program environmental quality requirements. Review all the weapon system acquisition programs, potential real impact of the environmental quality in Army installation. Review Army weapon system acquisition program environmental quality codes, participation with the Army cost review boards, and provide representation with the weapon system costs and working group with the integrated project teams. Develop, approve, and the funding of the space for the environmental programs and coordinate with the Assistant Secretary of the Army Financial Management and Control Comptroller with the Assistant Secretary of the Army Acquisition, Logistics, Technology, Research, Development, and Technology efforts. Approve the environmental input with the program objective memorandum, direction, priorities of guidance for the Army Environmental Program. Budget system, resource allocation, and finance requirements, budgets for adjustment recommended for the Assistant Chief of Staff of Installation Management and coordinated with the Deputy Chief of Staff, Garrison 8, and Assistant Secretary of the Army Financing Management and Comptroller. Ensure the Army trusts responsibility government to government relationship, federally recognized Indian tribes are fulfilled. All the National Historic Protection Act compliance agreements as required. Approve the integrated with the Army Environmental Policy Institute, U.S. Army Environmental Command annual work plans. V. Provide supervision, protection, direction for the Army Environmental Policy Institute to provide program objective memorandum, budgets, and what is it? It's UFR approvals. Consult with the Assistant Chief Staff of Installation Management on selection of the Director of Environmental Program. Serves as an intermediate radiator for the Director of Environmental Program and the USAEC. Provide put into the performance objectives. Acts as the co-chair of the Assistant Council and Assistant Chief of Staff of Installation Management, Headquarters Department of the Army, the Environmental Quality Control Committee to provide direction, delegated specific actions to the Army Department of Defense, RECs. I printed the Regional Environmental Coordinator, Management Operation Regional Offices, support permanent co-chair, Department of Defense Operational Environmental Executive Steering Committee with the munitions. Report annually the Secretary of the Army, Chief Secretary of the Army on Army Environmental Program. Serves as the point of the contact external audits of the Army Environmental Program. Provide congressional testimony reports of the Congress. Provide programmatic environmental scoping planning of the include National Environmental Policy Act or the Strategic Environmental Assessment. Overall, oversee the Army Environmental Program, support natural built environments, including the ranges, inclusive the Army Environmental Program, addresses overseas installation activities, integrate with the energy pollution prevention and environmental management system. The ESOH Environmental Support Office activities of fire protection and national security executed on the LRAM. Alright, 1-6. The Assistant Secretary of the Army Financial Management Comptroller. The Assistant Secretary of the Army Financial Management Controller will issue planning, the budgeting, execution, system policy, funding authorization, documentation, footnotes, conservation, reimbursement, forestry, agricultural, grazing, out lease programs, guidance for the environmental programs, fish, wildlife, conservation fund, appropriate apportionments in coordination with the Assistant Secretary of the Army I&E. Develop an independent cost estimate that includes environmental quality life cycle cost estimate, and for each weapon system reconcile the difference of the environmental quality life cycle cost estimate for the program office estimate, and developing Army cost positions, collective report environmental liability of our Army financial statement. 1-7. The Assistant of the Secretary of Army Acquisition Logistic Technology. Assistant Secretary of the Army Acquisition Logistic Technology will provide policy guidance, oversight, technical assistance for the acquisition program manager. The program executive office is as required to ensure the integration of the environmental quality consideration in all aspects of the acquisition program, plan, program, budget, execute, Army Environmental Quality Technology Program, the ETQ budget, activity 1, 2, and 3 of the program initiatives, coordinated with the Office of Secretary of the Army I&E to maximize the ability through the Army to achieve the assured strategy. Develop the policy to ensure the procurement of the material designed to minimize environmental impacts throughout the life cycle while ensuring operational effectiveness. Developing a policy and coordinated with the Army Secretary of Staff. Army Secretary of Staff. Develop policy to ensure the procurement of the material designed to minimize environmental impacts throughout the life of the cycle, while ensuring operational effectiveness. Army Secretary of the Army I&E Acquisition hazardous material developed in the over initiative to reduce the volume and toxicity of hazardous material, ozone depletion substances. used in the Army Material Review annually, environmental quality technology of the research, development, technology, and evaluation efforts, conjunction with the Army Secretary and the Army I&E, designate the Director of Research Laboratory Management and on permanent co-chair with the Environmental Technology Technical Committee, who in conjunction with the ASIMS, Army Chief of Staff of Installation Management, consolidates the priorities in Army environmental technology needs to ensure the cost-effective allocation of available resources consistent with the APGM. Alright, and integrate environmental consideration and warning awareness with the acquisition programs training in accordance with the Department of Defense Directive 5001. Ensure the environmental quality life cycle cost is clearly identified with the program office. Estimate the procurement of the Army Green Procurement Program to facilitate compliance with the affirmation of particular procurement requirements covered for the material and bio-based items. Encourage the acquisition and use of the environmental preferable products and services. Ensure all the requests of the proposal, contacts, and contract modifications include the requirements of the bidders provided with the goods and service installation certify the representation certification compliance with their proposal. The operation of the team, including the subcontractors, will consistent with the installation end of the EMS environmental management system. Incorporate environmental management system requirements for the appropriation, acquisition, regulations, policies, procedures, point and single point contact, coordinating the action of the Office of Chief of Staff, Installation Management Department, the DEP. I'm looking through my things now. Director of Environmental Programs. Provide the direct support of the Army Acquisition Community Program, Executive Office of Program Product Management, regarding environmental affirmative procurement initiatives, issues, concerns by providing recommendation to Army Acquisition Executive and other decision authority for the environmental issue associated with the material acquisition. The Secretary of the Army ALT mission function is designated with a single point of the contact coordinated with environmental issues related to the material development, logistic technology for the headquarters Department of Army component organization coordinated with the Office of the Secretary of Army I&E. Ensure the execution of the environmental policy of acquisition managers. Alright, 1-8, Chief of the Public Affairs. Chief of Public Affairs will provide with the guidance and oversight of the public affairs support with the Army environmental programs, provide advice with the recommendation of handling the public affairs and aspects of Section 552, Title 5 U.S. Standard Code requests that related to the environmental program. 1-9, Deputy Chief of Staff Garrisons 3, 5, and 7. The Deputy Chief of Staff Garrisons 3, 5, and 7 is responsible for developing coordinated policy programs and initiatives that achieve the directive levels, training readiness, Army, and serve the overall integrated with the Army transformation of the Deputy Chief of Staff Garrisons 3, 5, and 7. Serve as the focal point with the spectrum activities encompassing the force development and competent development, training, development, resource management, and prioritization. Each prioritized requirements for the Army range of the train to lands exercise over supervision, direction, management, oversight with the Sustainable Ranging Program. Specific responsibility for the Sustainable Ranging Program resides with the Chief Training Support System Division, who will serve the headquarters Department of Army functional with the proponent of the Sustaining Range Program. Its core programs formulate the policy issued administrative with programmatic guidance, information, instruction, implementation, sustaining the core programs of the Army Command, Army Service Component with commands, direct reporting units, Army National Guard headquarters, installation management, formulate the policy and procedures, planning of the program, operating, managing range, training lands, and specify how the Army will resource range operations of operation through the range training land program, land management maintenance through the integrated training area management program, integrated with the range requirements, overall Army infrastructure investment strategy in conjunction with the Office of Assistant Chief of Staff of Installation Management, central funded with the unexposed ordinances. Essentially funded unexploded ordinances clear with the range of modernization projects. Centrally funded for preparation of the National Environmental Protection Agency, a documentation range of the modernization project, the major training, land acquisition, coordinates synchronized range training and landing of the planning policy precluded with the conflicts between the range operation, military training, natural cultural resources management, environmental management, facility management, mastering plan activities. Serves as the co-chair for the Army Range Sustainment and from Integration Council. Deputy Chief of Staff Garrison 4. The Deputy Chief of Staff Garrison 4 will identify the program, secure the funds to address the environmental aspects of the function of the Deputy Chief of Staff Garrison 4. Is responsible to incorporate the environmental consideration requirement into all the aspects of the Deputy Chief of Staff Garrison 4 mission, to include the material management, integrated logistics support, supply transportation, maintenance management, and logistics training. Serves as staff proportional policy development pertaining to the hazardous materials minimization management, to include environmental management, AR200. Ensure the timely hazardous material handling and packaging transportation is provided with the Army personnel of the Continental United States Army overseas as required. Serve as the proponent with the implementation of the military mission rules, execute the coordinated responsibility for transportation of the logistics. 11. The Deputy Chief of Staff Garrison 8. The Deputy Chief of Staff Garrison 8 will provide with the Army with the program and evaluation group with the funding that processes the guidance to ensure the cost-effective compliance with the environmental legal mandates for the optimization benefits of the Army mission operations, ensure the priority to given the resource allocation cost-effectively resolve the environmental aspects impact with the mission operations needed to equip and sustain, train, or combat forces, review the requirements, senior mission commanders, Army Command, Army Service Component Command, direction, reporting, Commanders Acquisition Program Management with Garrison Commanders with the address of compliance with the legal environmental mandates, resolve the environmental aspects impacting missions and operations, review plans and requirements of Army Environmental Programming and coordinate with the Army Assistant Chief of the Staff and the Installation Management, conduct annual review of resources allocated with the standing environmental compliance with the overheated with the investment in the most cost-effective manner. 112. Commander of the U.S. Army Corps Engineer. The Commander of the U.S. Army Corps Engineer will administrate with the Clean Water Act of Section 404 permit the program permitted the discharge of the dredge filled with the material with water wetlands of the United States. Provide additional environmental support for the Army and other Department of Defense elements requested to provide environmental support for the federal, state, local, and agencies when tasked. Provide the Army Department with the DERP DERP is the Defensive Environmental Restoration Program. Execution support reimbursable based in the district center's expertise, hazardous, toxic radiation, waste, munition, explosive concern, and administrative of the DSMOA CA Program Assistant Deputy to the Undersecretary of the Defense Environmental Safety Occupational Health. Serve the executing agency, the funded unauthorized utilization FUDs program consistent with the FUDs charter establishes the FUDs requirement policy guidance for program management, planning, reporting, execution, data access, quality control, performance maintenance. Performance measurement, provide technical support, implementation, sustaining, designing, and development practices, including incorporating, supporting design and development, a sustainable project rating tool or spirit, environmental criteria for the Army's project design for the construction process. Note that the fiscal year of 2008 spirit will be replaced by leadership in energy, environmental design, or LAID. Also, new construction must be met with the LEED Silver standard, incorporating environmental requirements incorporated with the U.S. activities, appointing a single point of contact for coordinated with the action of the Army Chief of Staff, Installation Management, and the DEP, approved the integrated with the U.S. Army Corps Engineering and Research and Development Center and the Environmental Quality Testing Program, and provide all overall policy direction for the ERD. Or the Engineering Research Development Center. 113. Assistant Chief of the Staff of the Installation Management. Assistant Chief of the Staff of the Installation Management will serve as the headquarters Department of Army proponent with the Army Environmental Program, establish policies, priorities, guidance, procedures, installation, operation, real property management, environmental, mental stewardship of all activities to function with the Army garrison. promote environmental stewardship, standing in support of the Army Secretary of the Army and I&E, incorporate the environmental requirements and appropriate regulations, guidance, documentation, procedures, support environmental stewardships. Co-chair of the Headquarters Department Army Annual Review, the analysis of the Army Secretary and the Army IEA. And then we have like a whole bunch of ACOMs. Is issued the appropriate program for the Army Command, Army Service Component Command, Direct Reporting Units, National Guard, Army National Guard Headquarters, IAMCOM, Special Installations, Support Development, Environmental Programs component with the program, and Objective Memorandum, Development and Direct Planning of the program, Budget, and Execution Environmental Components for the Installation Program, Evaluation Program, or 2PAG Program. Needed to sustain readiness, comply with the appropriate federal, state, and local laws, executive orders, Department of Defense directives, oversee final governing standards, internal national treaties, state force agreements, in accordance with the General 3 Order Number 3 APGM, which is not listed. The specify the included base operations support service activities addressed with the following management and documentation, following management decision packages. VENC, environmental compliance, VEN, environmental conservation, VNR, environmental support range of munitions, VPP, pollution prevention, VQT, environmental technology, ENVR, environmental restoration, direct execution environmental components for the installation program, evaluation group 2, 2PEG program, service as a proponent, Army compatible use of the buffer program, further the EA, executive agent of the Department of Defense Forestry Reserve account with the coordinating with the DASA ES environmental safety of hazards, provide representation environmental installation with the concerning with the Army requirements over this council, provide with the guidance and incorporated with the BRAC. I'm looking, but BRAC. Base closure and realignment, base closure and realignment commission division. As an Army combat developer for the installation generated validated prioritization environmental research development technology and evaluation requirements, serve as a member of the Environmental Technology Technical Council, serve as an operation of the Army Standards SDD facility policies incorporated with the process planning, designing, construction, operating, maintaining, reinventing, disposing, and installation facilities, serve as the Technical Advisor, Assistant Secretary of the Army I&E for the all environmental materials impacting installation and sustainment and material operation support. Promote the integrated with the installation sustainability across the functional areas, for example, logistics, environmental training, and engineering. Maintain organization of the OACI, SIM, provide the Army Secretary of the I&E, otherwise directed environmental quality impact analysis for the major weapon system acquisition program decision review. I don't know where we're at, so we'll just start back here at direct number 8. Direct execution environmental components of installation program elevation group peg number 2, 2 number peg, serve the proponent Army compatible use buffer program, prevent the environmental agency's duties for the Department of Defense Force executive agent. Duties for the Department of Defense Forestry Reserve and coordinated with the DASA ESOH. Provide representation of environmental installation concerning the Army Requirements Oversight Council. Provide guidance on incorporating the of the Base Closure and Realignment Commission. Oversight responsibility environmental military munitions response program with the Army Chief of System in installation management of the Base Closure Realignment Commission Division. As the Army combat developers, CBTD dev installation generally validated prioritize environmental quality research development technology and evaluation requirements. Serves as a member of the Environmental Technology Technical Council. Serves as a proponent of the Army S&DD facilities policy incorporated within the process planning, designing, construction, operating, maintaining, renovation, disposing, installation facilities. Serves as a technical advisor for the Assistant Secretary of the Army (INE) for all environmental materials, implementing, installation, sustainment, and material operation support. Promote integrated installation sustainability across all functional areas, for example, logistics, environmental training, and engineering. Maintaining organization with the Office of Assistant Secretary, Assistant Chief of Staff Installation Management that will provide with the Assistant Secretary of the Army, INE, otherwise directed by the Environmental Quality Impact for the Major Weapon Systems Acquisition Program Decision Reviews. Provide technical support with the Assistant Finance Management and Comptroller with the Environmental Quality Life Cycle Cost Estimates as part of the Army Cost Review process is required. Upon request, assist program management integrated with the environmental quality consideration into all aspects of the acquisition program, issuing implementation guidance to the Office of the Defensive Secretary using the Army installation, implementing guidance with respect to the endangered species with the critical habitat design, providing an annual authority with the forestry, agricultural, grazing, and hunting and fishing fee reimbursable programs. Serve as initial denial authority acts of the Freedom of Information Act requests representing the environmental activities other than litigation. Manage environmental restoration of the Army, an ERA account, manage environmental program, the responsibility for the base of operations, or BOS, base operation support through the Office of the Director of Environmental Programs. The Office of the Director of Environmental Programs serves as the headquarters Department of the Army functional proponent for the Army Environmental Program, provides the headquarters Department of the Army oversight to the Army Environmental Program that reflects on overall compliance, stewardship, sustainability, readiness priorities. Formulate the issue Army guidance, instruction, implementation, sustaining Army Environmental Program. Coordinate the Army Environmental Program requirements with the appropriate organization to preclude conflicts for the synchronizing activities, maintaining operation, training, real property management, mastering plan, identifying planning program, budgeting, support, and defending military resources requirements of the Army Environmental Program. Exercise primary Army staff or responsibility to the oversee management coordinated with our military. Environmental programs as described in paragraph 1A1 through 1A20 include resource utilization progress towards the goals of the object of the 2PEG funded program, serves as the proponent of Army Environmental Awards managed programs, establish configuration control management board to advise the Department of Environmental Program policy on Army environmental reporting manners, developing the guidance implementation utilization coordinated with the geospatial information, serves as the environmental program, exercises the primary Army staff responsibility to collect, coordinate, integrate, use requirements for the Army environmental quality testing program through the Army environmental requirements technology assessment process, particularly the EQT teams to ensure that the environmental quality technology teams to ensure the environmental quality technology users need is are effective addressed. Provided with the guidance recommendation on all issues directed by the Army Chief of Staff, installation and management concerning the brief policies of planning, budgeting, and execution for the CCC programs. The Army DERP include installation restoration program and the MMRP, the base closure and realignment commission, cleanup and FUDs, provided with the general oversight of the resource requirement verification guidance, execution by FUDs programs to ensure proper program execution consistent with the FUDs charter. 14. Provide oversight environmental performance assessment system serve as executive secretary of the Department of Defense Operational Environmental Executive Steering Committee for the Munitions and Headquarters Department of Army ECQQ. Environmental Quality Committee Commission or something, serves as chairman of the Department of Defense Housing Hazardous Waste Management Subcommittee, serves as co-chairman in the RASIC Army Range Sustaining Integration Council. to execute the environmental management system responsible for ISO 14001. This regulation monitors the execution of the Army environmental program to confirm the environmental management system. Establish implementation guidance for the Army Environmental Reporting System. Provide upward reporting of the progress of the Army Environmental Program goals. Objective of the Headquarters Department of Army Office of Secretary of Defense and Congress. 22. Develop an Army-wide standards metrics of the Army Environmental Program designed to the Army Chief Staff and Installation Management representatives as voting members of the Army Force Pest Management Board, or designate Army senior consultants and the Department of Defense, certain officials for the Army civilian personnel, per the Department of Defense policy and procedure, maintain efficient, well-trained workforce, coordinate with the Army Environmental Program, strategic outreach, centrally manage the conservation, reimbursement, forestry, agricultural, grazing, outlease, fisher, wildlife conservation groups, set an installation specific automatic reimbursable authority for forest and agricultural grazing and installation. 14. Commander Installation Management. The commander of the installation management, or the ICOM, execute sustainable base operations supporting other installations under the purview of the compliance with applicable laws and regulations, to include final governing standards and internal agreements overseas to support the Army training testing mission, integrate program guidance and the goals, in issuing the cross-installation functional areas, for example, logistics, environmental training, and engineering and planning, oversee management, installation, environmental programs, provide program management, reviewing the Army Chief of Staff, Installation Management, and Department of Army Secretary of Army, OSHA, monitoring the track environmental performance of the regional office of the U.S. Army Reserves, assist installation for the execution of Army CC program, develop an annual program management or plan consisting of an Army cleanup strategy for strategic plan for the CCC program, coordinate with the Installation Management Command, issue the affecting the missing among the senior mission commanders, the SMC, the ACOMs, the ASCC, the DRUs, and the garrisons, coordinate with the execution of the Environmental Protection Agency Services Program for the Active Army with the U.S. Army Engineering Corps, participate in environmental awards activities, appropriate, review and analyze, performing quality surveillance, assurance of quality control, approving environmental requirements, data reported with the installation, maintain an efficient, well-trained workforce, coordinate with the Department of Chief of Staff, G357 ACOM, ASCC Director of Report Unit, Director of Plans, Training, Mobilization, Security, to ensure the ITAM program report requirements are implemented in accordance with the DAMO TRS resource allocation guidance. And report progress in the meeting of the Army Environmental Program goals, objectives of the Headquarters Department of Army leadership that provide with the guidance assistance for the garrison and monitoring execution of the installation management control command portion of the Army Environmental Program, in accordance with the environmental management. Environmental management system. Where was I? Okay, assistance in the installation management command, installation negotiation regulatory agencies to provide adverse mission impacts with the inadvertent established Army policy that may conflict with regulatory requirements, provided the Army Environmental Program technically implementation support for the command of the U.S. Army Corps Engineering, who will provide the environmental technical products, services, and support for the Army training, operation, acquisition, sound stewardship. 2. Manage assigned elements for the Army cleanup program in accordance with the Army Chief of Staff and installation management direction, guidance, and development. Execute annual program management plan consistent with the Army cleanup strategy strategic plan for Army DERP. Provide technical support for the pest management. Provide coordinated with the execution of the Environmental Protection Agency services for active Army. Provide program management for for Army DERP or do active installation. Execute policy and guidelines for Army Environmental Reporting System. 7. Provide technical support, chief training, support system division, office of the Deputy Chief of Staff, Garrison 3, 5, and 7 in the support of the SRP core groups. Provide technical support for the day-to-day operational oversight with the conservation, reimbursement, forestry, agricultural, grazing, outlease, fee connection programs. Provide technical support with the Department of Army, Secretary, ESO, and the environmental safety of hazards, and support with the ASARC, Environmental System Acquisition Review Council, and the I print out the abbreviations. It's just a pain in the ass. There's like 100 of them. Well, anyways, the CRB provide technical support with the Army Environmental Quality Technology Program to relate the installation issues. Provide outreach for the program for the support for the Army Environmental Program. Provide public affairs to support Army Environmental Program. Maintain efficient, well-trained workforce. Provide hazardous material management program or operational oversight with the Department of Chief of Staff Garrison 4 for environmental hazardous material management. Perform data collection analysis of the hazardous material management program, environmental information, measure program success. 115. The Chief Army Reserve. The Chief Army Reserve will ensure environmental sustainable operations, serve the Army primary Army Staff Advisory, Army Reserve mission-related environmental issues, ensure the Army environmental policy is implemented with the Army Reserve, ensure environmental stewardship is incorporated into all aspects of the environmental mission, coordinate with the Installation Management Command on matters of the mutual interest and concern. 116. National Guard Bureau Director, Army National Guard. The National Guard Bureau Director, Army National Guard will execute environmental sustainability-based operations, support compliance with the applicable laws, regulation, support Army training and testing missions. Ensure the National Guard Bureau of the Director of Army National Guard, the Act requires, manages, and distribute, required to develop administrative policy and programs, serves as a channel communication between the Army and National Guard of the states, territories of the District of Columbia, serves as a primary Army Staff Advisory for all Army National Guard environmental issues, signing an appointment of designated representative of the Army National Guard, federal compliance agreements, consent orders, and environmental assessment, findings, notice of significant impact or other protected environment for federal environmental documentation. Coordinate with the Headquarters Department of the Army, starting the Army National Guard, other organizations such as the National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard, Army Staff role as an Army component of the National Guard Bureau of Army National Guards, roles installation management of the state of the Army National Guards and the National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard, Director of Army National Guards, are roles in the ACOM, ASCC, DRU units. Functions. Specific day-to-day responsibility for the environmental management programs reside with the National Guard and Army National Guard Bureau, Chief of the Environmental Programs. To carry out the responsibility of the National Guard, Army National Guard CEP will ensure the environmental sustainability operation planning, ensure the environmental policy is implemented in the Army National Guard, ensure the environmental stewardship is incorporated with all aspects of the Army National Guard mission, integrate program guidance goals and issues across the installation functions areas, for example, logistics, environmental training, and engineering and planning areas. Submitting environmental-based requirements for the OACSIM budget, executing environmental resource consistent with the program program needs to develop an annual program management plan consistent with the Army cleanup strategic plan of the Army CCC control cleanup. Provided with the program management reviews, the Army Chief of Staff Installation Management, the Department of Secretary of the Army ESOH Division provides supplemental information, implementation guidance, and instruction consistent with the Headquarters Department of Army guidance for the environmental reporting to the state, report progress in the Army Environmental Program, goals and objectives of the Headquarters Department of Army, and to provide with the State Army National Guard assistance monitoring and execution of the National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard portion of the Army Environmental Program in accordance with the environmental management system schedules to do all aspects of the environmental protection agency services, audits, review, and analysis, and quality assurance and quality control, approve of the environmental reporting data submitted by the National Guard and Army National Guard Bureau installations. This is the Army National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard installation negotiation regulatory agents to prevent adverse mission effects, impacts federal natural cultural resource requirements, support environmental award activities, maintain efficiency, well-trained workforce at federally owned leased National Guard, Army National Guard installation facilities, activities, properties, provide oversight facilities coordinated with the remediation process, assist the management and execution of ER environment and engineer regulation, Funded by the National Guard, Army National Guard, recommend mediation, now federal owned, federal supported National Guard, Army National Guard installation facilities, activities, properties provided with the guidance, planning, oversight, execution, monitoring, reporting to the National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard, cleanup sites. Alright, 117, the Judge Advocate General. The Judge Advocate General, or TGA, will provide legal advice for the Army environmental law materials except for the arising civil works and the FUD's activity of the Chief Environmental Law Division. ELDL will exercise the authority to be on behalf of the Judge Advocate General. Will specifically serve as the legal advisor for the Army Chief of Staff. Installation Management. The DEP will regard environmental matters as advised the Army Secretary and in coordination with the General Counsel provide technical channel supervision coordinated with advice to the Army lawyers involved with the Army environmental matters, monitoring, providing advice regarding the environmental legislation, regulatory developments that affect the Army, and review and render the legal opinion of the draft environmental orders, consent with agreements and settlements with federal, state, and local regulatory officials, except for the arising floods, before signature provided with the assistance of the ACOMs, ASCC, DRUs, Installation Management Command, and National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard, installation, drafting, recognition, negotiation, and interagency agreements in order to consent with the federal, state, and local regulators. G. Be responsible for the Army and the federal, state litigation, communication, Army position, litigation settlement with the Department of the Justice, subject to the general oversight of the General Counsel. Serve as the agency counsel for the Army and the appropriate command cases and hearings and enforcement actions. Serve as an initial denial authority of the Act of Freedom of Information Act request for the records pertaining to the environmental activities when and records relate litigation to the United States as interest. Alright, 118, Surgeon General. The Surgeon General will approve human health risk assessment, review environmental hazard, ecological risk assessment, provide policy with the human health and the aspects of the Army installation activity operation to include those aspects associated with environmental contamination, integrated environmental awareness, technical information with the training program sponsored by Army Mechanical Department, Army Medical Department. The serve as the lead agent of the Department of Defense, Army Representative Negotiation Services, Agency of Toxic Substances, Disease Registry, develop toxicological profiles concerning chemicals, hazardous substances commonly found with the military installation development, propose human health and safety environmental standards for the chemical agents, explosive compounds, or other unregulated compounds which such standards do exist. In addition, identify pollution-related health and ecological effects that requiring research development and initiate needed research in areas of the Army Medical Department. Has responsibility to provide toxicological exposure data when required to support human life risk assessment. Advise human health aspects, environmental, including the known imminent substantial environment endangerment KISSE, and determine an environmental response action oversight provided with the technical assistance relating to health and requested environmental aspects of the program and or initiatives coordinated with the human and ecological health risk assessment portions of active installation base BRAC or FUD's decision documents. J. Promulgate the policy of the disposition and denial of veterinary, medical, and pharmaceutical waste, provide with the two representative of the voting of the members of the AFBM, design personal for the Department of Defense, pest and management, coordinate certification officials, and Army Unified personal per the Department of Defense policy and procedure, coordinated with the Office of the Army Chief of Staff, installation management, service prevention, control, medically important pest disease and vectors, and occupational health exposures from pest management operations, provide health and environmental communication supporting all Army assets, including the training, consolidation, conflict management, and facilitation. Develop policies, occupation, public health issues related to the Army environmental actions through U.S. Army Medical Command and U.S. Army Center of the Health Promotion of the Preventive Medicine. Will plan, organize, budget, execute medical support for the Army environmental program. Serve as the decision authority for the determinations of the public threat and threatening and design for the Army environmental activities. Provide a broad range of the expertise. Serve with environmental health, occupational health, and preventing medicine to evaluate the health aspects of the Army's environmental program. 4. Provide environmental health support with the all environmental media to the Army and the Department of Defense elements as requested. Assist the maintenance of military item disposal instruction for the Department of Defense. Provide preventive maintenance and leadership services and anticipate identifying assesses controlling environmental occupational health hazards. health threats, provide environmental health, occupational health expertise, products and services, and supporting training and operational acquisition, research and development to assess the health risks associated with the Army environmental programs activities, and support the U.S. Army Engineering Corps will coordinate with the execution of the Environmental Protection Agency Services Program. 119 Army Command, Army Service Component with the Command and Direct Reporting Unit Commanders. The Army ACOM, ASCC, and the ARU include those outside of the continental United States are used in this regulation include the Director of the National Guard Bureau and Army National Guard with performing the ACOM, ASCC, and the ARU role relative to the site of the Army National Guard. State Adjutant General will perform the ACOM, ACC, DRU role relatively to the State Army National Guard Major Support Ordnance Command, or MSC, ACOM, ASCC, DRU Command will Army Command, Army Service Component Command, and direct reporting units, consisting of the headquarters of the Department of the Army, provide oversight, policy, guidance for ensure resource subordinate commands and activities execute the mission-related aspects of the Army environmental program, include the training, deployment, industrial operation, research, technology, testing activities, operations other than war, and other operations activities not falling under the direct control or supporting garrison and installation commanders. B, to ensure the subordinate units comply with the policy standards of the installation on which they are tenants. Ensure that all the subordinate units comply with all applicable laws, regulations, internal directives, goals, and executive orders overseas of the federal government standards. Fully integration with the environmental consideration of the Army Command, Army Service Component Command, and direct reporting units mission requirements, participating in full support Army internal, external assessments and audits, implementation, corrective actions, support environmental awards, and ensure activities ensuring the assigned environmental staff efficiency, well-trained Army Command, Army Service Component Command, and direct reporting units with the exercising command with the controlling installation will they execute the same responsibility listed under paragraph 113, Commander of the Installation Management Command, in which following the exemptions of environmental requirements must be submitted through the Army Command, Army Service Component Command, direct reporting unit, and National Guard Bureau, Army National Guard chain of command unless otherwise specified on the ISSA. The Army Command, Army Service Component Command, and direct reporting units must monitor the track environmental performance and subordinate installations. Additional Commander of the U.S. North will provide with the request personal resources support of the National Response Team, the Regional Response Team, and the responding to environmental agency emergencies to request or reimburse the cost of supporter. Serve the lead at all phases: mobilization, deployment, redeployment, observations, operations, and environmental support activities listed in national emergencies. 120. Commanding General of the U.S. Army Force Command. The Commanding General of the U.S. Army Force Command will incorporate environmental planning requirements for the mobilization guidance as appropriate, coordinate with the Installation Management Command, Department of Chief of Staff, Garrisons 3, 5, and 7 environmental support of the mission activities, include training, exercise ranges, operation missions of the MILCON projects, provided with explosive ordnance disposals, units of emergency response activities. 121. The Commanding General of the U.S. Army Military Command. The Commanding General of the U.S. Army Military Command of the Commanding General AMC will provide technical assistance to program managers, program executive offices as required to ensure the integration of environmental quality consideration in all aspects, acquisition programs, weapons system life cycle, such as acquisition, maintenance, disposal, demilitarization, conducting environmental research, developing, testing, evaluation technology, investigation, supporting and the mission activities, support the Army Security of Army Secretary of Army ALLT and efforts to develop and integrate with the Army Environmental Quality Science Technology Program, managing portion of the program suggests the acquisition logistic industrial base user needs. Coordinate with the acquisition logistic industrial base user under the U.S. Army Corps Engineering and the U.S. Army Chief of Staff Installation Management in areas impacting the installation of the environmental quality technology. Execute low-level radioactive waste management, including disposal. Ensure contracts, including the provisions of Operation Government-Owned Contractor operated with the Goku facilities are remain complete with the environmental legal mandated with the protecting the Army liability of the refines or issued due to the contractor operations. View and revise military specifications standards drawing when appropriate to eliminate and reduce the use of extreme hazard substances, toxic chemicals. Coordinate with the efforts with the programs as required. Conduct the Army Command responsibilities for the installation under its purview. 122. The Commander General of the U.S. Army Training Doctorate Command. The Commanding General of the U.S. Army Training Doctorate Command, or Commanding General TRADOC, will ensure the development, implementation, environmental training of the doctorate and command programs, products with the support military training readiness operation consistent with regulatory requirements and environmental policies. Ensures the U.S. Army Engineering School solicits and prepares environmental training packages as required by the for soldiers. Make available online Army Knowledge Line, the other appropriate websites. Ensure requirements, documentation, incorporated environmental resources, statement lessons learned into the appropriate Army Joint doctrinal publications, reference to all in the training with the training manual, training doctrine requirements, documents included with the sound environmental practices and procedures. Coordinate with the Office of Army Chief of Staff Installation Management regarding the establishment, the staffing, and the training of the standards of the modified tables organized with the equipment of the MOTO tables or distribution allowances and unit designated environmental officers. Ensure the environmental officer responsibility are consistent with regulatory requirements of Army environmental policies. Ensure organization of the units are designed with the equipment and personnel to meet the established environmental requirements. 123. The Senior Mission Commanders. Senior Mission Commanders, or SMCs, comply with the installation of applicable federal, state, local law, and environmental laws and regulations, executive orders, oversee final federal for foreign government standards, signed agreements, participate in initial planning of the sustaining efforts of the emergency management system, environmental management systems, designate representative of the Environmental Quality Control Committee, ensure personnel receive appropriate with environmental training, coordinate testing and fielding of the technology with the garrison commander, participate in supply and full support installation, internal external assessments, audits, and implementation corrective actions. Fund environmental requirements not covered in standard installation or the ISSSA, which does not apply with the military units. And appoint the trained environmental officers to ensure operational compliance, coordinated with the installation environmental staff. Immediately report spills and release of the petroleum hazard, substance hazard, or waste to the General Command. Participate in development and integrated with the national cultural resource and management and plans to ensure that they are compatible with the support of the mission. In conjunction with the General Command, ensure that the environmental requirements and the impact ranges of the training and landing are incorporated with the installation range complex master plan. When appropriate, coordinate the JELS, AEL, early on the environmental agreements, including but not limited to fine, penalty, settlement arrangements prior to signing them. Alright, 124, your garrison commanders. Sorry, I've said General Command, we went Garrison Commanders. Are used in regulation, including the U.S. Army Reserve, the Regional Readiness Support Command, and stated junction general relatively concept of the state of the installation. Outconish U.S. Army Garrison or Garrison Commanders will appropriately determine the Installation Management Command, headquarters of the National Guard, Bureau, Army National Guard, State Generals, and the Garrison Commanders will ensure the established base support with activities supporting military training, readiness, operation, enhancement, mission accomplishment, and are conducted in a manner conducive for the environmental stewardship per A1 and 1A, comply with the applicable federal, state, local environmental law regulations, internal directives and goals, the executive orders, and overseas foreign government standards. Investigate with regulatory enforcement actions, compliance spills, release, core directive, systematic problems, documentation, investigation, negotiation, resolution of enforcement actions, submitting the respective chain of command of the Office of Department of Environmental Protection through the technical legal channels of the JLSE. Environmental requirements and the impact range for the training with the land identified and incorporated with the installation range complex master plan, ensuring that the senior mission commander is made aware of these impacts. Ensure the installation activities incorporate applicable environmental requirements into all procurement actions. Apply for sign of range funding and maintain applicable federal, state, and local law environmental permits. Incorporate potential mission surge conditions when appropriate environmental permits. Maintain appropriate environmental records as required by law. Record enforcement actions within 48 hours. Viva the Army Environmental Reporting Online. Aerial. Coordinate with the GALSEL early on environmental agreements, including but not limited to fine, penalty, and settlements arrangements prior to the segment of the Garrison Command may not delegate approval of the signature authority. Ensure the compliance agreement with the consent with the attributed with the tenant's mission and operations are coordinated with the applicable legal and command channels to determine the appropriate funding activity. Assess the long-term resource impacts, environmental agreements, and coordinate resources implementation for the agreements of the command channels, installation management command, National Guard Bureau, Army Command, Army Service Component Command, and direct reporting units are appropriate prior to the approval. I'll ensure the non-Department of Defense hazmat material that has hazmat material owned with or used by the non-Department of Defense entities is not stored or treated and disposed of the installation used and approved by a Secretary load of I&E, a Secretary of Assistant Secretary of the Army I&E, or his or her designee and higher authority. Ensure the installation strategic planning office is equivalently incorporated sustainable principles into the strategic other installation management command plans or enable the installation strategic plans of the senior mission commander prior to the finalization. Implement an installation-wide hazardous material management program. Promote recycling reuse programs. The green procurement policies. Organize chair of the environmental quality committee control. Organize chairs of the technical review committee, the restoration advisory committee, as an implementation maintaining the main focus of the environmental management system in accordance with the ISO 14001 standard. Third party, the restoration standards are not required. Environmental funds will not be used for this purpose. However, the general garrison command may pursue with the third-party registration provides clear and documentation benefits. The champion of the installation environmental management system designed an environmental management representative appropriate organization planning cell, ensuring all planning incorporates the requirements of an environmental management system. Participate in fully in environmental protection agency services, conducting annual internal environmental compliance assessment, coordinate with the assessment with all tenants, preparing, executing installation corrective action plan, or coordinate with the monitoring completion of the installation-wide corrective actions. Ensure the environmental plans are coordinated, completed, and implemented in per guidance of Chapter 3. Designated person who are responsible and accountable for the execution major program are prescribed in Chapter 4 through 14 to all the procedures of the Conservation Reimbursement Program as outlined in Section 2665, Title 10 U.S. Standard Code, Section 2667, Title 10 U.S. Standard Code, Section 670A, 670B, and Title 16 U.S. Standard Code. Serve as federal agency official responsibility for the installation compliance with the Native American Graves Protection and Reparation Act. Establish government with the government relation federal recognized Indian tribes, national Alaskans, and maintain public affairs programs with the encourage the public involvement. Ensure the installation master plan incorporates environmental consideration, identify environmental requirements for these command channels containing audible records, and execute environmental budget to meet the critical requirements. Maintain an efficient, well-trained environmental staff. Ensure the Army and law enforcement personnel are trained in the conservation law enforcement where appropriate. Ensure sufficient number of professional trained national resource management personnel and natural resource law enforcement personnel are available, assigned the responsibility performing the tasks necessary to comply with the Section 670E, Title 16 U.S. Standard Code. Approve record decision or decision-making documentation for environmental response actions of the delegated appropriate approval authority. Approval integrated national resource management plans. Hold tenant accountable for complying with the policies and standards of the installation. Approve annual reports available for the timber sales after review of the higher headquarters of the U.S. Army Engineering Corps. Designated installation wildland fire program managers and approval will be integrated with the wildland fire management. 125 Medical Department Active Medical Center, Medical Health Service, and our commands. The Medical Department Active Medical Health Service Support Area commanders comply with all federal, state, and local environmental laws, regulations, executive overseas for foreign government standards, manage disposal of non-resource of Conservation Recovery Act, Subtitle C, and medical, dental, veterinary, pharmaceutical regulated medical wastes in accordance with the AR200, the applicable regulations. Verify that disposable Viva the MIDI system updated and maintained by the U.S. ACC PPH. Ensure the regulated medical waste manifests are only signed those individuals who have been appropriately trained and authorized in writing by activity commander or supervisor. Appoint the trained environmental officer to ensure the operational compliance coordinated with the installation environmental staff, including coordinated with the medical waste management team. plans, advise health aspects, installation, environmental program, provide technical installation support services, notify the environmental requirements, and fully forward the command channels for the maintainable audible record. 126. The tenant is an authorized activity located in installation is not part of the garrison organization. This includes but not limited to military units, Army, Air Force exchange services, and defensive commissionary agencies. Tenants will comply with the installation and policy of the applicable to federal, state, local law, environmental laws, regulations, executive orders, and federal foreign government service standards. Establishing the ISSA with the garrison commander with address environmental oversight, including the funding of responsibility, facility accessibility that does not apply to the military units' participation in installation, maintaining sustainable environmental management systems. No, however, the installation should evaluate the liabilities concerning the non-governmental tenants to determine whether any of them can be accepted through the installation and environmental management system. Designate a representative of the Environmental Quality Control Committee. Ensure the personnel received required environmental training. Participate in all installation, internal, external assessment audits, including the programs and corrective actions, funding the environmental requirements that cover the standard installation services of the ISSA. This does not apply to the military units. Identify submitting environmental requirements to the Army Command, Army Service Command, Component Command, and Direct Reporting Unit higher headquarters if it does not apply to the military units. Refine coordinating non-mission specific environmental requirements of the garrison command, pay environmental fines, penalties resulting from the mission activities, and immediately report spills, release hazardous substances on scene coordinator, pay reimbursement costs and associated with the cleanup of the spill response is not covered with the standard installation services of the ISSA. For all instant non-compliance notification enforcement action, the garrison command immediately ensure the non-Department of Defense hazardous materials not stored, treated, or disposed of the installation unless approved by the OA Office of Secretary, Army, INE, his or her designee higher authority. 127. Commanders of government-owned contracted operated facilities. Commanders of government-owned contracted operated facilities will coordinate with the contracting officer to ensure the contracts include the provisions operating with the Goku facility to meet and remain compliant with the environmental law mandates to protect Army and liability and or fine assets due to the contractor's opinion. Operations comply with the installation policy, applicable federal, state, local law, environmental law regulations, and executive orders to ensure the contractor assumes responsibility for the management and the disposal of the contractor generated with the solid hazardous waste. Ensure that the Department of Defense hazardous material is not stored or treated, disposed of the installation unless approved by the Office of Secretary of Army, INE, and his or her designing authority. Disposal all proceeds with the conservation reimbursement programs as outlined in Title 10 U.S. Standard Code 2665, in Title 10 2667, and Title 16 U.S. Standard 670B. Execute environmental management services and responsibility in accordance with the contract provisions. Assess the long-term resource impacts environmental agreements and coordinate with the acquisition community, coordinate resource for implementation agreements that the command channels are prior to the approval, and ensure all contractor personnel requires a level of training, environmental awareness, hazard material waste, and management installation of the environmental management system. 128. Unit commanders. Install the environmental ethics of soldiers, civilians under the command, ensure the personnel receive the required with the environmental training, comply with the installation policy, applicable federal, state law, environmental law regulations, executive orders, oversee federal foreign government standards, report non-compliance bills and appropriate channels to the garrison commander, and incorporate the environmental responsibility, environmental risk management into the unit standard authorization procedure, operation orders, as an appropriate integrated with the environmental consideration into planning execution process in accordance with the Field Manual 3-104 and appoint with the trained environmental officers appropriate organizational level to ensure the compliance action takes place. Field Manual 334.500 for environmental officer responsibilities for support the installation-wide environmental management system. Chapter 2, Environmental Policy.